the women are more likely to be on the receiving end of domestic violence if they're the primary breadwinner, because the male partner switches from a benefit affording to a cost inflicting mate retention strategy. You know, if you begin to feel a disparity in mate value, you have two choices, right? You can either start to raise yourself up or try to drag the other person down, and, you know, making them fearful of you is a pretty good way to drag them down. But that's kind of dark. That being said, the patriarchy is so powerful that we've somehow convinced women that they both need to earn the money and that we can stay at home while they bear the burden of children. So maybe this is just a psyop from all of us to not have to do anything except for Xbox now.
What we've discovered. All right, so I don't really believe in. Okay, patriarchy clearly has like a strict anthropological meaning in that societies where only men are allowed to be in positions of power and authority have traditionally been described as patriarchal by anthropologists. We don't live in one of those anymore. We haven't lived in one of those for half a century now. In this country we've had like 3 female prime ministers and so forth, right? But I think that there's also a different way in which people use the word patriarchal, which still to some extent applies to contemporary culture, which is that there's this quite deep-seated feeling shared by both men and women, and I think cross-culturally, that masculine things are higher status than feminine things. Mm-hmm. And that's why you see this great eagerness, actually, of women, now that they can, to participate in like masculine coded things, to be...
What, like?
Well, professional work, right? That there's been this rush of women into public life, into traditionally masculine roles. There has not been a rush of men into traditional feminine roles. Not at all.
Because there's no status associated with them.
Because there's no status associated with it. And I think often that's what feminists are describing when they talk about things being patriarchal. Like they recognise the fact that there's that kind of status gap.
Remember who's ascribing that. At least 50% of society is ascribing that, like, on their own behalf, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, this is what Richard Reeves' book was so interesting, where he talks about HEAL, right? What was it, like health education, maybe like administration or something else?
Yeah, feminine jobs.
For more feminine jobs. There are 4 times more female fighter pilots in the US Air Force by percentage than there are male kindergarten teachers in America.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, because there just hasn't been this rush for men to try and attain feminine status, right? And I don't think that our culture is misogynist, right? Like misogynists exist. There are some of them out there, but that's not typical. I think, though, that this sort of deep-seated assumption that women are, like, you're familiar with the women are wonderful bias?
Yes.
So this is the cognitive bias where people will tend to actually prefer to sort of show kindness and generosity to women over men in various scenarios. So, like, you see a stranger drowning, you're more likely to jump into the water and save them if they're female than if they're male.
But both men and women are more positively predisposed to news stories that complement women's outcomes, or say that a woman achieved something, than say that a man achieved something.
Exactly.
And vice versa is true too.
Right. Which doesn't fit at all with the idea that we live in like a misogynist culture. I don't think that we hate women. I think, though, the way that women are sort of regarded, all else being equal, is as like your mum. Like, you love your mum.
You don't want to be her, necessarily.
You don't necessarily respect her. I think that's the common way in which, like, I think that the puzzle basically as to why women are so consistently regarded in a particular way cross-culturally as being like lovable but also a bit like lower status is that women are considered to be kind of adjacent to children. So in the same way that we love children, but we're not going to let them vote.